So what if I told you that one of the most powerful forces in human history isn't what you think? It's not military might, it's not political office, it's seduction. Today, we are diving deep into Robert Greene's incredibly controversial masterpiece, The Art of Seduction. This is a book that peels back the layers of human desire to show the raw mechanics of attraction, persuasion, and ultimately, power.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a quote that really gets to the heart of the book's whole challenging idea. See, Greene argues that seduction isn't some trivial romantic thing. Historically, he says, it was a super sophisticated and necessary tool for people who didn't have direct power. It was a way to level the playing field against pure physical and social force.
So, just to be super clear, this explainer, it's not a how-to guide, all right? Instead, we're going to treat the book like a fascinating cultural study. We're going to break down its ideas about psychology, about influence, and about the subtle games of power that are playing out all around us, from our own relationships all the way up to the political stage.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about seduction beyond romance to get what we're really talking about. Then, we'll dig into 3 key strategies: creating the alluring fantasy, sparking that uncontrollable desire, and building an enigmatic presence. And finally, we'll zoom out and see how this all works with seduction on a mass scale.
All right, let's start with the book's main argument about what seduction really is. And the best way to do that is to first understand what it isn't.
You know, Greene's first big, provocative idea is that most of us, we're naturally anti-seductive. And think about it, it makes sense, right? We're usually direct, we're logical, we put all our cards on the table. And while that seems honest, the book argues it's also incredibly predictable. It just kills the mystery, kills the intrigue, and that's the fuel for desire. The Anti-Seducer is basically an open book, and a really easy book to put down.
So if being direct is anti-seductive, what's the alternative? Well, let's explore the first major archetype from the book, the siren.
The siren operates completely on the level of fantasy. They don't offer you a normal relationship. They offer you an escape. By creating this spectacular, almost unreal presence, they're basically promising a ticket out of the boring, mundane world of work and responsibility. This isn't just about looking good. It's about embodying a perfect dream that someone is desperate to be a part of.
So how does this actually work? The book lays out a pretty clear process. First, the siren builds this amazing, alluring appearance. Then, they lure their target away from what Greene calls the masculine world of logic and rules, and pull them into a feminine realm of just pure pleasure. But here's the key. Once the target is hooked, the siren strategically pulls back, turns cold, creating this painful absence that forces the target to desperately chase them to get that paradise back.
The book's #1 example of this is, of course, Cleopatra. She didn't just have a meeting with Julius Caesar, she put on a full-blown siren performance. She created this incredible image on her royal barge, pulled him away from all the messy Roman politics, and took him on this lavish trip down the Nile. She completely immersed him in a world of pure spectacle that he just could not resist.
Now, from that huge, larger-than-life fantasy of the siren, we're going to pivot to a strategy that feels a lot more raw, more immediate, the archetype of the rake. The rake's power is really fascinating because it seems to come from a place of weakness. Their desire for women is just so intense, so all-consuming, that it feels completely authentic and out of their control. So you ask, how can a guy who's a supposed slave to women also be a predator? Well, that's the trick. That perceived lack of control is the control. His weakness becomes his deadliest weapon.
So what exactly makes the rake so appealing? Well, it's a powerful mix. They absolutely thrive on resistance. The more you pull away, the more intense their desire gets. This creates this thrilling, forbidden feeling, and it appeals to that secret part of us that wants to break the rules. And here's the real masterstroke. Even with their bad reputation, they use their wit and intense focus to make their current target feel completely, uniquely desired, like she's the only one who ever mattered.
The artist Pablo Picasso is held up as a perfect rake. When he was pursuing the young artist François Gillotte, he didn't want it to be easy. The book actually notes that he needed her to resist him, because that resistance was what fueled the excitement of the chase. That need for an obstacle, that's the whole game for the rake.
Okay, our third archetype isn't so much a specific character as it is a quality. It's the seductive power of just being hard to figure out, of being a walking paradox.
Most people are, let's be honest, painfully obvious. We present this one consistent personality. But the book argues that seduction thrives on ambiguity. People are just drawn to those they can't quite figure out. Having an enigmatic aura makes them want to know more, and it pulls them into your orbit just so they can try to solve the puzzle of who you really are. The real magic, according to the book, is in hinting at these contradictions. Are you tough, but with a surprising soft spot? Deeply spiritual, but also really earthy and grounded? The writer Oscar Wilde was an absolute master of this. He cultivated this very mannered, almost artificial look, but his conversation was famously spontaneous and witty. It left people confused, intrigued, and, in the end, totally enchanted.
So far, we've really been focused on one-on-one stuff. But what happens when you apply these same principles to entire groups of people? This is where the book brings in the idea of charisma. Greene basically defines charisma as seduction on a mass scale. It's that magnetic quality some leaders have that just makes huge crowds feel more alive, more connected, more hopeful. It plays on our deep, deep desire to believe in something bigger than us, to be led on some grand adventure away from our boring daily frustrations.
And the book breaks this magnetic quality down into 4 key parts. First, an unshakable sense of purpose. They just seem so confident and visionary. Second, an aura of mystery. You can never quite figure them out. Third, a little bit of saintliness, which makes them seem selfless and trustworthy. And finally, a contagious fervency, this fiery belief that just sweeps everyone else up with it.
And the book shows how this works with 2 completely different examples. On one hand, you have the poet/politician Gabriele D'Annunzio, whose fiery speeches could mesmerize tens of thousands. And on the other hand, you have Andy Warhol, who seduced the entire art world with his blank, silent, mysterious vibe. One was loud, one was quiet, but both created this irresistible, powerful, charismatic pull.
So the book's final argument is that these aren't just stories from history. They are fundamental patterns of human influence. Once you start to see the blueprints for how fantasy, mystery, and desire are created, you really can't unsee them. You'll start spotting them in ads, in political campaigns, and, yeah, maybe even in your own social life.
And that leaves us with the book's final, pretty provocative question. If these forces are constantly swirling around us, we have to look a little closer at our own lives. Are we the one pursuing, or are we being pursued? The influencer or the influenced? In this grand, subtle game of power all around us, who exactly is seducing whom? Thanks for joining The Explainer.